Well, I think we were able to address some needs. Starting with the trade for John Gibson. I hope obviously we make that move with the intention that we're better in that. We stop more pucks, makes us a better team. We're expecting that of John and Cam as a pair. So start with that. In free agency, Jacob Bernard Docker on defense gives us a little bit of depth. Kind of not a big name signing or whatever, but has been an effective player in his time in Ottawa, and particularly plays hard and competes. So that gives us a little bit of depth on the blue line. Up front with JVR on the left wing, a bigger body. I think he had 19 goals last year and has been 18, 19 goals each of the last couple seasons. And Mason Appleton as well. A right winger that plays on the penalty kill, chips in a little bit of offense, but will kind of where I think Mac will be able, or Todd will be able to put together a so-called checking line that can contribute a little bit offensively as well. So fills a need for us with a right winger who's a little different style of play than say Lucas or Alex DeBrincat, who's a right shot but plays on the left side.
Just what would your message be to fans who maybe were hoping for bigger signings?
While we were certainly open to it, and, the guys that we were hoping to talk to all signed before free agency with their clubs or got traded. In the case of Mitch Marner, we didn't even get an opportunity to talk to these guys. So there's not much you can do about that. So we're going into free agency. I think we all recognize that it was going to be difficult all around the league. There was just a season, for whatever reason, that there weren't as many, I guess, what we would all consider high-end free agents available this year. So it wasn't really a shock to us that we weren't able to get anything done with any of the bigger name guys.
Lastly, were there any other bigger name guys who did make it to free agency that you were in on, and they just ended up signing elsewhere, or?
Well, I guess bigger names are all subjective. We talked to, we really weren't, I don't know if it's appropriate or not really to talk about who we were or weren't, but not many of them really. It seems like the guys had really targeted where they want to go, and out of respect to the teams, we knew pretty early that we weren't going to be involved in much.
You may have brought this up before, but do you expect, I don't know, some trades or whatnot to open up here with teams kind of settling in now and whatnot after free agency?
Possibly. We're going to kind of wait and see if that any opportunities arise. Basically, everybody gets through the draft, then you go full bore into free agency, and everybody's either in the midst of their development camp or wrapping it up and get that done, and then focus on, okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to fill a hole, or do I need to shed payroll now? I've got one extra body or whatnot. And so I think that'll sort itself out this week, and we'll certainly explore. I know there's a couple of teams that are looking to move some people, and for various reasons, depending on where they're at or what they need to do. But probably less likely, or less, this year, and that more teams had cap space. I don't think there's too many teams. I think there's a couple that have to do a few things in relation to the cap, but for the most part, everybody's still got a lot of cap space. So
It's going to go up the next couple of years, Steve. I mean, do you think free agency is going to change here a little bit? It seems like guys are staying with teams now because the teams do have a little bit of cash. So I don't know. What do you think is going to happen going forward?
Yeah, well, with the cap going up, I think throughout the pandemic, depressed cap or artificially low to get through that, it's caught up now, and the cap is going up, and teams have more money to spend, and trying to lock up their, whatever, I guess you consider their core guys. So I would probably, without taking a great in-depth look at the pending free agents for next year, I think we'll probably see this trend of guys being able to extend early. So again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would think they just have more ability to retain their guys. And truthfully, it's hard to get players. Like real difference makers. You know, a 32-team league, you know, how many difference makers really make it to the market? And you're looking at the salaries, whether of all the players, and you know what we would consider a fourth line player is salaries are probably double what they were 3 years ago. You know, and we all, I think we're all, including yourselves and the fans, trying to wrap our head around what's a good signing and what isn't a good signing now, because the dollar amounts are really increasing.
You talked about Vin Riemsdyk's goal scoring. I know Todd makes the lineup, but is he a guy you would envision playing potentially higher in a lineup? I know his minutes have been a little more in like the 13, 14 range last couple of
Yeah,
years.
well, again, yeah, Max, be Todd's decision. What we do like is that we think we have a lot of flexibility, that he can go up and down the lineup. And if you check his usage in Columbus, that's exactly what he did. He was a little bit up, he could play up with some of, you know, on their first line at times, up and down. He's a useful power play guy and whatnot. So you know, in talking with Todd over the last couple of days, as we were looking at players, you're kind of piecing where they go, and he was one that, you know, he could go here, you know. So there's some flexibility and for Todd now, and with his line combination, so he can be equally effective up and down.
And then you talked prior to free agency about the possibility that some of your improvement might have to just come from, you know, growth within, promotions. Like, I'm not asking you to put anybody on the roster today, but do you, based on what you saw from Nate Danielson down the stretch, do you feel like he's a guy you expect to be on this team at some point this year? Do you think he has that potential?
Possibly. I don't want to rule out anybody coming in and having a really strong preseason and forcing us to take a longer look to see how they start at the regular season. That's a possibility for several players, including Nate. We've got 12 players signed right now. Our debate is, do we sign another one to have that quote, unquote, 13th forward, so to speak, or do we leave that spot open and see if something comes up here over the summer, or leave it open and let all those guys that, you know, Nate's and that, you know, earn that spot. What we don't want to do though is have, you know, a young player here as a 13th forward sitting in the stands, where he can be as that depth guy, as where he should be in GR playing. So, but it is a possibility. There's a few of them, and that we think, hey, they could make this roster.
Steve, I know a couple of years ago you were able to get DeBrincat later in the summer, but I imagine it's much more difficult to pull off a significant trade after free agency. But do you look at maybe some teams there's a few teams maybe over the cap or that need to shed some salary? Do you think there's some possibilities there?
Today, no, but possibly over the next week or two, and I think there's teams still figuring out a couple of things. Without going into detail or elaborating, there are a couple teams looking to do some things that we do have some interest in and are possibilities, but I think more, something might come up over the summer for whatever reason in another organization. But what I intend to do is, once things settle down here, we get the holiday weekend, would be to circle back after next week with everyone to see what their plans are for the off season, if they have any holes to fill, or players for whatever reason they want to move. So we'll see if anything comes up here in the next week or so.
And with as much cap space as you have right now, if you still go into the season with that much, does that give you flexibility to maybe explore trades just during the season?
Sure. Yeah, obviously it does. Yeah. Just because you have cap space, you just don't spend it. But yeah, we have plenty of cap space to do a lot of different things, and it's even to acquire a player now. And even if it's an expensive player, we have the ability to do whatever we can do. The most important thing is to find, players that fit. What we could use right now is, a defenseman to play in our top four, and preferably a right shot. But it doesn't have to be a right shot, because we can move these guys around a little bit. But that would be our biggest, potential need. Now, I say that last year with Sherratt and Sider in one pair, Albert all of a sudden went over on the right side and played with Simon, and they were very effective in that pairing for us. Like it was really a pleasant surprise that they both played very, very well together. That's an option for us if we can't do something. So we'll kind of explore that, see if we can find something to fit that spot. But if not, the plan B isn't a terrible one.
Steve, as currently constructed, do you feel like this roster, assuming you get the growth from the young players you're seeking, is good enough to take a step forward next season? Or do you feel like, as you just referenced, you need to add a top 4 defenseman or possibly a top 6 forward to play on the wing?
Oh, I'd love to add both of those things. That it would make us better for sure. I hope to, I think today our team is a little bit more competitive. Maybe constructed a little better than it was at this stage last year. So I'm hopeful that we take a step. I'm expecting, like Mo and Ray have been in the league 4 years now. Still expect them to take another step. Marco to continue on the path the trajectory that he had at the end of the season. Simon got better and better as the year went on. Albert, went from, kind of 7-8 role and all of a sudden he's playing in our top 4. And I think there's more room for him to grow. So I'm expecting John Gibson to give us a boost and make us stronger. So overall, I think we're a little bit better. How many points does it translate to in the season? We're going to find out.
On Marco, you just referenced him. If he continues on his current track that he kind of set last season, how much can that elevate you guys over the course of 82 games, assuming he settles into that second line center role most likely?
Yeah, well, I thought he had a real impact on us all over the ice, really. He's playing in all situations. And I think most importantly is he felt like it looked like he was very confident out there. He was just playing. He felt like he belonged. And again, I can't tell you he's going to get, whatever he had, 12 goals in his last 20 games or something, continue at that pace. But he's a really good all-around player. And, he can really make a difference on his line and on a team. So I think, I don't want to put, raise the expectation to unrealistic levels or put too much pressure on him alone. But he's really a driven young man, really competitive kid, and every day he's out there working to get better. So I think he's a mentally tough kid too. So I think, regardless of the goals and assists, I think he's going to be an even better player. He's just getting more and more comfortable, and he really works at it.
And then lastly for me, I know you didn't foresee many opportunities to pursue offer sheets or explore offer sheets. Did you wind up exploring that at all? And could you possibly still, as a couple guys, remain unsigned on other teams?
Yeah, I haven't, we focused on the unrestricted free agents. You have conversations with agents for some players around. They bring up the idea of an offer sheet. Would you consider it? And again, and I say the same thing to you as I do to them. Yes, I would consider it, but only if I really truly believe I'm going to get the player. And I don't see many scenarios here where, because everybody's got so much cap space. And again, I go back to Edmonton and St. Louis, the situation last year. And speaking with Doug Armstrong about it, is that they really felt that they had a good opportunity, and they saw a team that was vulnerable, and they saw an opportunity. But you look at teams with cap space, or even the ones that don't, you try to guess, okay, if I do this, am I going to get the player? How can they match, and what do they got to do to match this thing? So the only reason to do it is if you really believe you're going to get the player, and there are very, very few teams out there that I think you're going to get the player from. So everybody, and maybe I'm wrong, so we'll see what happens this summer, but my position on it, again, is I'm not going to do it just to do it, only if I think I can get the player. And I'd prefer to try and trade for the player than use the offer sheet.
With the trade of Vladimir Tarasenko, during your season-ending press conference, you were open to the possibility of that he could bounce back as opposed to his 11 goals this season. Did anything change in that thought process when the decision was made to cut the cord? And then secondly, Todd McClellan's coaching record with the Red Wings over a full 82-game season would have most likely resulted in a playoff spot. How much of a boost do you anticipate starting this season with McClellan as the head coach on game one?
Well, with Vladdy, ultimately, we felt we looked at several players. Turned out to be James Van Riemsdyk. So okay, like if we can move, if I can replace the player, I'd consider moving him. Wasn't like so when we thought whether it was James or another player that we can. I was able to move Vladdy and replace him with a less expensive player, and so that's really the decision to go that way. And it frees up cap space to do what I don't know, but it frees up cap space to maybe do something. And that was heading into free agency and heading in. Still got a long off season and a long way to go till the trade deadline and whatever. So I think that answers that question. I think. And as far as Todd, I think he's an excellent coach. There's a very positive vibe, I guess, in the locker room amongst the players. We saw a boost last year. Was it just a boost, or are we a better team? And that's what we'll find out. I think that the new coach kind of bump that you sometimes see, that's over with now, and now it's up to the players and the coaches to show that they can sustain that level, and I expect them to.
Steve, I know the focus has been like long term, but when you look at the ages of some of your kind of key players, Patrick in his mid-30s, Dylan and DeBrincat kind of right in their primes right now, like how, if at all, does that shape kind of your approach right now and how you want to do things?
Well, Brad Marchand at 37 just signed a 6-year contract, so I've got Dylan for another 15 years, I figure, so we got plenty of time. We're trying to build around that same group of guys. They've got a lot of years ahead of them, which isn't comforting at all to anybody. But I'm not concerned with the age of like Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat. They're great athletes. They train hard. They take good care of themselves, and they're very motivated. We're trying, believe it or not, we are trying to improve our team. We are trying to get in the playoffs. We're trying, and we keep adding these younger players, and it remains to be seen if there'll be any additions this year. But again, you look back to last year, to Simon playing a full season in a big role, Marco by the end of the season playing a significant role, Albert playing a significant role, Elmer, we're looking to take another step this year he only played like 26 games, I think it was, and I expect him he's going to be an everyday player, and we're expecting him to have an impact. How much offensively? I think there's a lot there, but most importantly, just what he brings. Yeah, you see him, he's huge, obviously, but he's become a pretty complete player in that he can play on the penalty kill. He manages the puck really well. He's responsible defensively. So we're moving those young players in, and this year, there's some of these kids are close. Will they come in and eventually, sooner than later, I think, is you have a core which still includes Dylan and Alex, and Kaner's going year to year, but the way he takes care of himself and prepares, he's got a lot of hockey left in him too, so we just kind of keep sticking with it. And again, unfortunately, this free agent situation this year wasn't conducive to putting, getting a real impact player for us. So, but we'll keep that option open.
Should have gone to 43. Just like Marchand. I tell you, a couple more one-year contracts.
No, I should have stopped at about 38, actually.
The third goalie, is that a still topic, or are you guys just going to go with Gibson and Talbot at this point, or what?
Something to consider, like right now with Cam and John, and then we've got Michael Postava and Sebastian, obviously, in GR, Carter Guylander, that 5. Something we're kind of kicking around the idea of what do we do? Carry 3 here, carry 3 in GR, kind of wait it out, see what happens. I'm not really sure, but it's, again, something that we're mulling around. I think without looking at the list of potential number 3 goaltenders today, I'm pretty sure that list is dried up. You know, I would think they're all signed. I'm not sure who's out there, but it's something to consider. You know.
What'd you think of the development camp this week?
I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of it, but you know, Danny Cleary and Nick, along with our staff, I think they do a really good job organizing it and watching the kids go through their skating. And, you know, the bits you get to see the kids that have been here from 1, 2, 3 years, the progression in their skating it's pleasing to see the progression in them, and you get to see the newer kids first off, a couple of the invites. So it's exciting for us to watch, and you see, hey, you kind of, there's some prospects out there, and again, I think there's some real good prospects, which aren't big names to any of you or whatnot, and there's no guarantees, but we see some of these kids, and it's like, geez, you know, these guys might just show up on our team or maybe somebody else's team in a couple of years.
Steve, the league's going to make some changes down the road. What are your thoughts about the 84-game schedule and a shortened preseason? Do you think they'll enjoy that?
I think the 84-game season makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think it'll give more balance to the divisional games. I'm not exactly sure what the matrix is going to be as far as divisional games and whatnot, but it seemed to make sense to us. Going I think to 4 preseason games. That's going to be interesting. It's a bit of a challenge. You want to, you're always weighing getting, how many games your veteran players need to play, the guys that are really knocking on the door, the guys that you consider call-ups, and then those players that are here really trying to push to make the team. It's going to be hard to get everybody in a reasonable number of games with 4. That's the downside to it. But we'll manage it. But I think the 84-game season makes a lot of sense.
And speaking of young players, one of the most anticipated and talked about young players in the system is Axel Sandin-Pellikka. Not to put too much pressure on him or look too far ahead, but are you expecting him to realistically challenge for a roster spot in training camp, or would you more anticipate him starting the year with the Grand Rapids Griffins?
I guess I'll wait and see. I wouldn't. I'm not going to rule out any player coming in and being so good in camp that we're going to keep him and see how he does at the NHL. The preseason games are tricky in that, like, a lot of the veterans are just they're playing them. They know they need to play them, but it's not the intensity and the pace of and sometimes depending on who's in the lineup, you're not necessarily playing against NHL players, so you can. It can be misleading, both good and bad. But I guess I can answer that question better at the end of training camp. It was important. I think it was great that Axe came over at the end of his season and Skellefteå to play some games in Grand Rapids to get a feel mostly for then playing more games at the pro level on the North American ice surface. I think it was enlightening for him, maybe eye-opening a little bit. It's a little smaller ice, faster game, albeit it's only the American League, not the NHL, which is even faster. That it's a different game than in Europe, and he's got some work to do. And if he works, and we're expecting him to, and I believe he is, really has a good summer, gets a little bit stronger, a little bit quicker, that'll help him prepare himself for a good training camp and preseason. But he's really going to have to, just force his way into the lineup. And do I rule it out? No. So we'll wait and answer that one in September. But generally all the kids come. I don't care which one it is. He's an invite. They come with the idea that it's just the mentality that I'm going to show these guys. I'm going to make it hard on them to send me back to junior, to send me to GR, to release me from the ATO or PTO. It's just the mindset of the athlete.
Steve, you've kind of touched on this, but is there a level of frustration when you feel like you have the flexibility and the assets and maybe even the desire to go at a big name impact player, but maybe not the pathways or opportunities to get that done?
No, I wouldn't call it frustration. I guess just been my experience over the years that things kind of work themselves out. Opportunities arise. You try to force it, try to chase it. there's too many years, too many dollars, or you give up too much in a trade. And I think things have a tendency to work themselves out, and say, trying to be diligent, maybe patient, just wait for the right player, the right opportunity, whether it is in a trade or in free agency, to add to our lineup and use our assets wisely if we can, especially in the trade market. We're going to give up as a team that's building, rebuilding. Use your future assets. You want to make sure to the best you can that they're gonna that player is gonna be on your team, have a positive impact on your team, and be here for a while. Okay, great. We'll see you guys. Enjoy the summer. Yeah, happy 4th. Yeah, you as well. Thank you.